I am constantly drained, struggling to keep the pace in a world where everyone else seems to breeze through their days. For me, every single task, whether it is daily chores, socializing, managing motherhood, keeping up with entrepreneurial endeavors, or even just grocery shopping sometimes, feels simply overwhelmingly tough. It is like I must put on double the effort just to do what comes naturally to others. Even though I look like I have everything under control, there's a lot more going on inside that you might not see. Let us get into what it is like to be undiagnosed with inattentive ADHD. Before we dive deeper, let us clear up some common misconceptions. ADD or inattentive ADHD is not about intelligence. You can be brilliant or average and still struggle with it because ADHD is about how your brain manages attention and organization, not about how smart you are. Inattentive ADHD is the same as what was previously called ADD, attention deficit disorder. ADD is an outdated term that is no longer used in the diagnostic world. The current medical term is ADHD, attention deficit / hyperactivity disorder, which has 3 subtypes: inattentive, hyperactive, and combination. The traits of inattentive ADHD varies from person to person, except the name, as many with these traits can relate and may even agree, can be quite misleading. I personally am not a fan of this name because almost half the people with ADD traits, especially women, may not identify with it due to not having the hyperactive subtype of it. Inattentive ADHD, one of the subtypes mentioned, is characterized by the traits like trouble focusing, forgetfulness, and difficulty with completing tasks. In this video, I wanted to get into the inattentive subtype of ADHD because it is the subtype I most identify with. It is not really a problem of having a deficit of attention, but rather too much of it. Scattered attention that we must learn to control. Lastly, ADHD is not an illness. It is more like an impairment. In ADD, there is no brain damage, but indeed impaired brain development. I like how Dr. Daniel Amen and Dr. Gabor Mate puts it. Having ADHD is like someone who needs glasses, and wearing glasses does not make them dumb or crazy. It's just that their eyeballs are shaped differently. In this case, for a person with ADHD, taking medication or supplements for deactivating their frontal lobes is like wearing glasses to help them focus. I will share the 10 ADD traits that I resonate with the most and have led me to suspect that I might have adult inattentive ADHD. Make sure to stick around until the end for a Mindset Minute where I reflect on what all this means for me and what my next steps are. So let's take a closer look at these traits.
Disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes. Do not try to self-diagnose using this alone. If you have any questions or concerns about symptoms discussed in this video, please reach out to a licensed medical health professional.
Trouble maintaining attention on the speaker, especially if the topic is not immediately engaging. When listening to something or someone, I may get parts or bits of it, but then I may slowly drift from what I'm hearing. It all at some point becomes a bit muffled. I may tune back in and out again and again. Think of it as if you are on a bad area with low reception and that person you're speaking to is in and out in their conversation and you're left to put the parts together in the conversation, and you may miss some of it, but in the end, you make the connections through the conversation. This may also explain why I find myself captivated to passionate or animated speakers, which tend to keep me tuned in and engaged throughout the conversation or presentation. Otherwise, I avoid long talks and I like to keep my conversations very short and to the point. That is what it is like for me at times. This includes also written details, for sure. Frequent distractions, both external noises and internal unrelated thoughts. Like anyone else, we can see and hear things going on around us and have thoughts going on in our heads, but many people can doubt into focusing on what they are doing. On the other hand, people with ADHD find it hard to do just that. As I reflected on my younger self, sitting in class trying to pay attention to the teacher, any random movement or sound nearby would throw me for a loop, and my listening and attention would no longer be on the teaching. Today, when I do get back on task for just a few minutes, my thoughts begin to fleet to something that happened either earlier in the day or something that I really need to get done. So all these intrusive thoughts are coming in all at one time. This happens all the time, but not always. For instance, if it is something I am interested in, then I can pay very close attention and stay focused. And if it's not, well, it can be difficult for sure. I find it incredibly difficult otherwise to pay attention to subjects and matters that I'm totally not interested in. When I find myself in a position that places me under pressure, or if given a time constraint to finish something, then this is often not the case for me. I will get it done. I will nail down and focus in on the task. Otherwise, anything else, I may at times find it difficult.
Isn't that more like a willpower issue?
It is not a problem with willpower. It is just a problem with how the brain is wired. All the characteristics of ADHD are all problems that everyone have at some point in time. It is just that those with ADHD have a lot more difficulty with it due to the frequency these characteristics or traits, we'll call them, occur throughout the day. It is not under voluntary control. It is not something you can control with willpower. Poor organizational skills, such as misplacing items or having a cluttered workplace. For many, it is the difficulty of organizing their stuff, such as their backpacks, notebooks, and living space. For others, it is not their stuff, but rather their time and their work, keeping things that should be prioritized as priority on top of their list. Even if priorities are straight, which often does not happen, they will still have difficulty of getting started on that priority task. It is hard for me to do both at times, but organizing is something I have learned is necessary for me to function. So when I start to see the disorganization happening, I tend to make the time to get it organized again. Getting started on anything is another difficulty. Still working on this, as this one is a kicker for me. I have found that surrounding myself with goal-pursuing or like-minded groups and communities to be quite helpful for getting started, even if it means that I must start over and over again, more than once. Problems with working memory, such as keeping track of multiple tasks or remembering key details. Either forgetting something or not remembering me doing something. Going upstairs or downstairs for something only to forget what it is I was going up there or down there for. Getting distracted and doing something else I started to do earlier once I get there. Yeah. Trouble completing tasks or projects, often leaving things unfinished. This includes finishing things at a reasonable time. For example, when starting, it can be going well, but then I have a tough time finishing or still being consistent with it. Jumping into things without thinking how it could affect what I'm doing in the moment can be another issue for me. Simply put, I would be on track for one thing, then shiny object comes along, and I say to myself, hey, this is something I can see myself doing, all while losing sight of what it was I was on track for completing. To remedy this, listen, I have made a pact with myself to start nothing else until I see return on investments for what I've already invested in. Trouble organizing thoughts coherently. When it comes to writing, it is taking the ideas that are in my head and placing them in sentences and paragraphs that can slow me down sometimes. Often I may have a lot of ideas of what I want on paper, for example, writing an essay or a story, but it takes forever to get the sentences and paragraphs put together to where they make sense, you know? And me being a slight perfectionist adds to this dilemma. So also this includes organizing my thoughts and getting my words out of my mouth. This results to me often sitting in awkward silence in a group setting or with someone I'm trying to get familiar with. Low frustration tolerance and difficulty coping with criticism. Petty things such as beeps, clicks, loud chewing, or some little disturbances that people will most often find on a scale of 0 to 10 at a 1 or 2 at most. But for some people with ADHD, including myself, they will say it's at a 7 or 8. And this can release a surge of frustration at times, but it is not always that way for me. For instance, as a single mom to my only delightful child, of course she has no one else to bug but me. So I often get frustrated or annoyed when she comes in for attention, especially when I'm trying to focus or gather my thoughts on something. I am aware and I'm currently trying all my best to not make it seem like I'm pushing her away constantly. Another core memory from my childhood is playing in my room. Yes, I remember drawing characters, cutting them out, and playing house with them. And then there were my stuffed toys. I brought them to life as well. And I wasn't the only child. I had older brothers, but I enjoyed myself by myself. The point is, I could not wait to get home from the overstimulating public school grounds to my quiet space and just be with my creative mind. That's all I looked forward to every day. Avoids or is reluctant to engage in tasks that require sustained mental effort. I have all these intentions and things that I want to do. I may have an idea, a vision, or a plan to do something and how I'm going to do them. When it's time for me to try to go do them, I just find something else less brainstorming to do. It is the intention, meeting up with the action, that tends to fall apart. Again, this for me looks like procrastination until the due date approaches, or when I'm left with no choice other than to get it done. Difficulty managing long-term projects and following through with plans. Setting things to the side until they become an emergency is most often the fallback on long-term extended projects. I remember my brain working like this for a middle school project, which was a science project actually. The night before it was due, I remember hyper-focusing on it to get it done. Let me tell you, I stayed up all night, anxiety running high. I'm not gonna get this done, I'm not gonna get this done, all while busy working. But I simply nailed it and I was just like, man, I can't believe I actually did this. So the next few days after turning it in, my project was hanging up in the classroom with a large green A+ on the cover page, as my teacher gave honorary mentions of the skill and the time and the creativity put into the project. Little did she know. But anyways, from this experience, I learned that staying on task and finishing a project or any task works best for me when an assignment or task is attached to a deadline or due date. Self-sabotage and negative feedback. So this trait I saved for last is very common in those with ADD, the feeling of being not enough or unworthy. This often stems from chronic criticism and negative feedback we've experienced throughout our lives. Struggles with performance and constant social comparisons can reinforce these feelings, leading to self-sabotage. This is why I'm shifting my focus towards mindset wellness on this channel. I believe that by addressing these feelings and learning to cultivate self-compassion and positive thinking, we can break free from the cycle of self-sabotage. These are all the ADD traits that I have experienced from childhood up until now, realizing that everyone experiences these traits at some point in their lifespans, but for me and others with inattentive ADHD may just experience them a bit more often than most.
So why does this happen? Why do some have more difficulty than others do? Why do some of us have any subtype ADHD brain?
Here's the science. The evidence shows that this is mostly inherited. Not in a genetically inherited way, but rather in an inborn temperament kind of way. It is not that a disorder develops, but certain important brain circuits do not develop. Interference with the conditions needed for a healthy development of the prefrontal cortex. Mate believes accounts for all cases of ADHD. Dr. Gabor Mate, in his book Scattered Minds, explains that people with ADD are naturally overly sensitive. This sensitivity is not a weakness. It is just how we are born. While genetics alone do not cause ADD, being sensitive can make it more likely for some to develop ADD traits if their environment triggers it. Dr. Mate also points out that this sensitivity explains why children with ADD often have more allergies and health issues like colds, ear infections, asthma, and eczema compared to other kids. Although allergies can make ADD symptoms worse, they do not cause ADD. Both allergies and ADD come from the same natural sensitivity in the person. Out of every 4 people that seems to get diagnosed with ADHD, there is a parent, either mom or dad, some family member that has it, although often it goes unrecognized. For some, it is seen easily in early childhood, and for others, not so much until their middle school or elevated level, where they must be more responsible with keeping up with assignments and tasks on their own. The brain is about 2.5 pounds and has 86 billion neurons, the microscopic cells that make up the brain tissue. These work on low voltage impulses, that is, not pre-wired together for anyone. The brain makes 50 different chemicals to help carry the right messages back and forth for proper mind and body functioning. 2 of these chemicals control most of the characteristics described earlier. So what is happening when that electrical impulse comes is that it releases microdots of that chemical. That is what crosses the gap and hits these receptors. It looks like spark plugs almost. If it hits the right threshold, it moves on. Then there are little cells that work like little vacuum cleaners and suck back the chemicals to reload the system. Otherwise, it would be locked open all the time. So the thought is, for those who have ADHD brain, is that they make these chemicals the same way everyone does. They simply do not release and reload them effectively. Another thing is that we know out of 8 people with ADHD, given the right amount of right medicine in their system, can then work better. Medicine prescribed for ADHD or ADD traits cures nothing. I repeat, it cures nothing. It is not like you have an infection and you take an antibiotic and it goes away. It is more like my contact lenses. I have a problem with my eyes. I cannot see well. When I'm not wearing my contacts, my vision is blurred. Therefore, the contacts did not fix my eyes. The same is true for the treatments out there for ADHD. Medication is just one aspect of the treatment one would receive for severe or has difficulty managing life with ADHD. The best conditions for full brain development are based on three conditions, which are nutrition, a physically secure environment inside your mother's womb, and the unbroken relationship with a safe, ever-present maternal organism inside and outside your mother's womb. Inside the womb, stages of fetal development and infant stages of development, the mother is considered provider, and developing child needs to provide nothing for itself. As Mate says, mother is womb, and life in the womb is like the Garden of Eden, and nothing can possibly be lacking. Nothing must be worked for. If there is no consciousness, we have not yet eaten of the tree of knowledge. There is no deprivation or anxiety. Finally, in asking my mother if I was breastfed, her response was no. When I tried to breastfeed you, you would break out in these red splotches on your face and your neck, and it's because my milk was no good. She says her milk was no good. And she actually understood that she was under too much stress, and she realized that she was passing it to me through her milk. This is what she told me. So I was like, wow. And as soon as she said that, I understood everything in the book was actually aligning with what she was telling me. So again, this is my confirmation that this might be what I have. Along with my allergy sensitivities, I may experience in certain environments, even to this day. So I know for sure this is something that I might be dealing with. Mindset Minute! If you followed me enough, as for me, I prefer natural alternative routes for managing any symptoms I experience. From what I've learned so far, and keep in mind, I'm still learning about this, but all I know is that I now believe that I may have adult inattentive ADHD, and I will be definitely hyper-focusing now on learning skills, using technologies and strategies to be able to deal with whatever it is I have to deal with to be successful in life, because this will not be a disability or hindrance for me. I'm not really seeking to get a professional evaluation, as these traits is a history for me of stress in my childhood, my mom's childhood, and I see current signs of her hyperactive subtype ADHD at play, and my grandmother's stressful childhood. All the signs of my daughter's combination subtype form of ADHD. Again, she's also undiagnosed, but this is just me speculating. I will have my daughter evaluated because I want to guide her as much as possible in how to understand and master how her brain works. I will be sure to update you all on this journey as I learn and discover more about ADHD and the alternative approaches for managing these features or traits. The challenge is to control the brain activity and not suppress it, but direct it. In Scattered Minds, Dr. Gabor Mate reveals that ADD is rooted in sensitivity, not disorder. Understanding this is empowering. As someone mastering your ADD brain, you're on the right track. Prioritizing nutrition fuels your brain, while a positive mindset strengthens your resilience. Remember, to be kind to yourself, grace is key. Every step you take in adapting to your ADD traits naturally is progress. Keep focusing on what works for you, and trust in your journey of self-discovery and growth. Your sensitivity is your strength. Embrace it. Find the mentioned book, Scattered Minds, and other great titles in my Amazon Finds Wellness Book site page in the description below. Something I found to work for me before me even realizing I may have inattentive ADHD or ADD traits is the Pomodoro method. Learn more about it in this video.
Together, we can become mindful entrepreneurs, or as I like to call us, mindfulpreneurs. Join me on this journey by subscribing to this channel as we explore ways to nurture our minds, embrace our strengths, and build a supportive community. Let's turn our sensitivity into our superpower and thrive in both our personal and professional lives.
Until the next one, keep it simple, mindset strong, and you got this. Stay focused, stay connected, and always choose joy.